Hi everyone, I'm George Jackson, executive producer of GovExec TV, and today's 5 questions are with Vanessa Meehan, senior manager, account technical specialist, NetApp U.S. Public Sector. Vanessa, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, George.
So kick us off here, Defense Health Agency and the military health system, big focus for us today. What are they trying to accomplish right now with MHS GENESIS?
Yeah, so I'm going to take us back a little bit, but before I do that, I want to go back to the focus of what this is about, and this is about the patient and patient care. And so this means having improved patient care, the doctors, the nurses, the medics being able to see in a clinical environment what's going on with the patient at that moment. And there's all these extra periphery positivity threads that come from that we'll get to in a little bit. But so going to that, and the excitement is we're really getting there. So right now today we've rolled out to 86% of the entire population.
Wow.
Yes. And this is 119 parent hospitals and clinics, and this affects over 6.6 million potential beneficiaries. So the beauty of this, of course, in the rollout and the success here, it started back in 1997, where the EHR record, electronic health record, was first kind of put together, the idea and the process. There are a lot of disparate systems before that. And then roll forward to 2015, started MHS GENESIS. So here we are, 86% complete and moving forward. So after we have a rollout, so what usually comes with a rollout, now we're kind of talking tech, so the user training and also the feedback loop. So that is the biggest thing on executives' mind and folks throughout the agency is let's get the training. So everybody's getting training, everybody's using the system. And within using the systems, when you have a doctor or nurse looking for something, like perhaps, and there's even some complex things that occur. So if there's a new drug on the market, they want to use the drug, it might not be in the drop-down list, initially. So those things have to flow through in the system. So for the help desk, the ticketing, people are putting tickets in. I was speaking to a nurse the other day. She was putting some tickets in of some functionality she wanted to see, and then rolling. And as that rolls up, and then I heard and spoke to folks on the other side who are kind of getting these tickets. There's kind of 2 positions that they're looking at. Either they're easy tickets to fix and it makes sense, or maybe it's going to roll up into a larger release. And then sometimes there's questions of, okay, well, maybe it's more of a user training. Do they need to see this data in this way, or is it available here? So all of these things are coming together. So with the rollout, the user training, and then the feedback loops, it's so much to celebrate. And everybody at military health system is really feeling this win for the patients and the doctors and everybody else.
You mentioned EHR, Vanessa. I mean, this is a pretty massive shift. Data management, like paradigm turned on its head. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, so it's really interesting because when you go back and look at the history on the timeline, and it actually is pretty cool to look at on the website, on the health.mil website, and they show the timelines, different things. There's so many legacy systems, and this is not unique to military health. This exists everywhere. So, but the siloed systems, so CHCS, the longitudinal record, there's all these great systems that have been built back in the day before we came to this, so they exist. So what do those silo systems mean? And what is the difference between then versus now? Well, so now with the patient portal, users can go into the patient portal and they can see, okay, I need to get this prescription refilled, and they can do it automatically there. They can have a secure chat with folks back, in the back end and talk to that. They can go to different locations and their records or information are actually there. Versus if you speak to some of the executives that have been, and other folks in the field, that have been supporting the military for so long. The funniest story, and I've not heard it from one, they all kind of sit around and tell the same story and cackle. They had paper records like all the way up to here. They're like, depending on how long you been in the military, it was like from here to here to here. And so that's what they had to lug around. And they didn't want to not lug it around because God forbid they would get another, 6 doses of vaccine,
sure.
Or something else to happen with that. So those are some of the things that really affect, the patients on that piece. And then pulling the thread and some of the exciting part as well, if you're a researcher or a data scientist, so now you have access to all this data. So things, like solving brain trauma. There's a lot of brain trauma happening throughout the military. So, you see a lot of it in the military. It also does affect the civilian world too. And of course, cancer. So there's all this kind of data. And when you have all this kind of data, then you can use predictive analytics. And the researchers can look at this data and figure out what some of these answers are. And when you take that and you translate that even into operational medicine and into the field, so when somebody gets hurt in theater, there are a couple of questions like, where do we send him? Because you have to know the status of exactly what's going on with him. Who is the doctor that matches up? What location? Because depending on how severe his injury is, it might make a difference whether you can take him 2 hours or 5 hours. Is there a bed there? And so all this kind of information, it feeds into a predictive analytics that's fed in from data, and the algorithms working better and everything working better and more efficiently. So we can also help, the folks we want to out in the field.
Let me ask a follow-up question there, because it appears like this is part of a broader push. I mean, certainly for the military health system, but for all of government, towards more rapid, agile, AI or ML enabled infrastructures. I mean, how do those two things relate? What does it enable in the future?
So this is really exciting. So again, speaking to a lot of folks within the military health system, there's some topics that always seem to pop up at every conference that we go to and everywhere and looking forward. So there's genomics, there's precision medicine, there's registries, and there's informatics. So all of these kind of applications that are pulling in data, they have to do with data visualization as well. So having data but being able to visualize it, that is where you bleed into applications. So having the data work for you, because having a bunch of data doesn't help you. You have to have it work for you somehow. So agile methodology, CI/CD pipelines, those kind of things where you can pull the data in and you can change. The developers, the way we develop today versus how we developed 20 years ago. I used to code. It's totally different, as it should be, with the advent of AI and ML and that increasing and stuff like that. So you really agile methodology is the way to move forward with that. We are lucky, and I'm lucky being a part of NetApp. So, we have definitely invested in this agile methodology as well. So with Aster Control, what it does, if you have developers that are using Kubernetes and coding using Kubernetes containers, it can automatically look at the applications and the data and everything associated with your Kubernetes container, and you can move it so it can be on-prem or you can move it to the cloud. And so it works in both areas. Being this hybrid multi-cloud world that we are, this gives the abilities for the developers and then the users of these applications, whether they're in theater, they're on-prem, they're in the cloud, they have the flexibility to be able to do that. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
I was talking to your colleague, Matt, works with Army very closely the other day, and he used 2 words in the course of our conversation, and it seems like a cross NetApp focus, and that's performance and consolidation. In the example we're talking about here, how can performance and consolidation be baked into the process?
Yeah, this is really exciting. I'm sure he spoke about BlueXP.
He did.
Yes, it's super fun. So the reason why that's so exciting is you can imagine, so we talk about this cool stuff, but what about the poor IT administrator who's dealing with his hybrid multi-cloud world? So he's dealing with NetApp, Dell, Azure, Google, AWS. It's a lot to put your arms around and manage. And people do get comfortable and want to go back to their silos. So what BlueXP is, it's actually one pane of glass. And you can see your NetApp infrastructure, you can see your Dell infrastructure, you can see your AWS, Azure, and Google infrastructure. And you have the ability to be able to move things from the different infrastructures over. And let me kind of pull that onion back to explain a little bit better. So the beauty of NetApp is ONTAP. So when you speak to people, well, you can see some funny videos about ONTAP of how the name was developed. But the beauty of NetApp really is ONTAP. It's the operating system that is on our storage technology and on our cloud technology. And so what that gives you the ability to do is whether you're on-prem or you're going to burst to AWS or to Azure or to Google, it's the same operating system. So given that's the case, you take out the complexity of managing the infrastructure because your operating system layer is just moving. And in this kind of world where you're doing all these kind of things, you have to have the mobility for better performance, for better agility, and of course it's all built in with security. So
Thus a single pane of glass,
yes,
as you said.
Yep.
DHITS,
Yes.
Defense, Health, Information, Technology Symposium.
Yes.
How does that relate to our conversation? What does DHITS need from industry?
Yeah, so it's so fun that you asked that question, because that question did come up at DHITS. One of the speakers said, yes, let me tell you what we need from industry. And I'm going to tell you what she said, and then I'm going to go back and kind of, because I've spoken to other people within DHA, because it really hits home this point. So she said we need security, we need cyber, we need zero trust, and in balancing the security layer, there's a balance also between cost, because there is cost, to make sure everything is secure. And so if I just peel that back for a second, there was another speaker that I heard from DHA, and it really hit home what he said. He said, if you take healthcare and you imagine it's all the PII data and all the information, if someone would get a hold of your record, what they can do with it, they can blackmail you, or they can find out, 1,000 different things about you, because it's got your social security number, it's got all your health records, all that kind of stuff. So security is a huge part of healthcare today. Now we layer that on into our military. So obviously there's a lot of security going on, with the military. So we have both of them. So DHA has to be focused on security, cybersecurity. And now with the advent of ransomware attacks, I know we've heard about a bunch of these. It's been on the news all over. And it's not that there haven't been similar attacks in the past. It's just now they figured out, let's make some money out of this, like good money. So there's more ransomware attacks. So NetApp has come to the table with the ransomware guarantee. And so what this means is we will guarantee your data on your primary and secondary storage through our snapshot technology and SnapLock. So what this means is you create a snapshot of your data. And so obviously everything has to be configured correctly, and we will come in with our services team, make sure it's configured and all the checkboxes are done. So you have snapshots of your data. And with the SnapLock technology, what happens is not even our administrator can get to the data. And since it's a copy, remember, it's not the primary, it's a copy of the data. So if something were to happen, there's a ransomware attack or some other kind of attack like that, you have a copy of all that data, period. So you roll back, you don't have to pay the money, what have you. Obviously, those decisions are up to the company what you want to make, but it is a way that you can actually guarantee that your data is not lost and that you have it. But NetApp, we've been supporting the federal government since our inception, so 30 years. We work hand in hand with the government, and we make sure from a security perspective that it's built in, that it's not something that's bolted on. And that can be seen. So over the years, we support within the federal space around 2,600 petabytes of data and over 56,000 systems. So these are, generic numbers, not, what's on and off. But over the years, this is kind of when we try to figure out a data call. And what all that is to show is how we are really in a partnership with the U.S. federal government, with security being the number one.
And back to the beginning of our conversation, patient care in all of these areas we've discussed today.
Yes.
Well, Vanessa Meehan, Senior Manager, Account Technical Specialist, NetApp U.S. Public Sector, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
That's been today's GovExec TV 5 Questions. I'm George Jackson. Have a great day.